and Rob.
Yeah.
Great.
So Eric is recording that. So.
All right. Hello, everyone. We're so glad that you're all here. We're going to go ahead and get started because while we're booked for an hour, I know the amount of information that Jonathan has could go for multiple hours because it's just such a wealth of knowledge. But we're so glad that you're here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Robin Troutman. I'm the Deputy Director for the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities. And we, along with University of Illinois at Chicago, Joe Caldwell, the ARC, SABE, US Aging, I think that's everyone, Sibling Leadership Network. We've been fortunate that we were selected through the Administration on Community Living to work on a grant for bridging the aging and disability networks within states. We are finishing up our second year where we currently have 7 states doing a community of practice to explain and show different ways that they are working with their aging and disability networks to have more cohesion in the states. And we're looking forward to getting ready to submit or to put out our requests for proposals for next year's states that are able to join. So please be on the lookout for that. But I'm just so excited that you're here. We had Jonathan Martinis speak. The last time I think NACDD had him speak was back in 2016 at our annual conference. So it's good that to hear from him again. And so I'm going to let Katie Arnold from University of Illinois at Chicago kind of do a little bit more in depth, but it's great that you're all here, and we look forward to doing more with you in the future. Thanks so much, Katie.
Great. Thank you, Robin. And thank you everyone for being here today. I'm so excited to introduce Jonathan today, who is the Senior Director for Law and Policy for the Burton Black Institute at Syracuse University. And I met Jonathan when he came to Illinois, to our Illinois DD Council, and presented about supported decision-making and shared all of the great work that he has done around the Jenny Hatch project. And I remember just learning so much, and I'm just so excited that he's here to share with us today. So Jonathan, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here, but first, before I say another word, an apology. As I was logging on to this webinar today, my laptop bricked. So you're seeing me today via iPad. I probably look worse even than usual, but my thanks to Katie, who'll be advancing my slides. So we're going to be playing the next slide, please game throughout this webinar. Again, I'm sorry, but we're going to do the best we can. One thing I ask that you do, if you have questions, please volunteer them, raise a hand. Katie, I'm going to ask you to check out the chat box. If someone has a question they want to ask, let's do it. If the worst thing that happens is I don't get through my slides, it means that we had a hell of a conversation. I'm also happy to answer questions at the end and, of course, follow-ups at any time. So let's begin. I'm John. Thank you very much for joining us today to talk about what is my favorite subject, what I think is the greatest advance in human and civil rights since the Americans with Disabilities Act. And what I'm talking about is supported decision-making. It's what we are going to talk about for the next hour, and I hope well beyond that. If you've heard about supported decision-making, what you've probably heard about it as is an alternative to guardianship or conservatorship, something you can do instead of a person going into guardianship or conservatorship, or something to help a person out of guardianship or conservatorship. And those things are true. But one thing I hope you take out of this today is that supported decision-making is so much more. It can make the services and supports people with intellectual developmental disabilities, older adults, receive better. It can make people's lives better, whether they are in or out of a guardianship. We'll talk a little bit about one of the states I'm working with who's a member of your community of practice, Connecticut. I can't wait to talk to you about it, but I have to make you 2 promises before we begin. Promise number 1, you just heard me say that supported decision-making is seen as an alternative to guardianship. That's true, it is. But my promise number 1 is this. You're not going to hear me say there should never be guardianships. You're not going to hear me say all guardianships are wrong or bad. My godson is in guardianship, and thank God for it, because it helps him. So that's number 1. Number 2, everything you hear me talk about today, all of the recommendations I make, all of the things I cite, anything I say that sounds authoritative is going to be backed up by one of 2 things: law and or science. Because the things I talk about, supported decision-making, is not some new thing, not some hippy-trippy vaporware. It is not some Johnny-come-lately in this field. It is based on decades of hard science. And it is now the law in over 20 states. So with that in mind, let's begin. Katie, can we go to the next slide? The first thing I want to talk to you about is something people don't often think about, and that's their rights. And think about your rights for a second. Think about your favorite right. And I know it's a weird question, what's your favorite right? It sounds like a pickup line at an ACLU convention. But really think about it. Think about the rights that make you the proudest to be an American, that make you proud to be a member of your state, to be a human being, the things that you would fight for if someone tried to take them away. Things like freedom of speech. Things like freedom of assembly or religion or voting, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These bedrock American rights that make us who we are. The things that are so important to us that we don't think about them all that often until we're about to lose them. Now think about what they all have in common. Katie, next slide, please. Choice. Rights have in common choice. Think about it. Freedom of speech is the right to choose what to say and what not to say. Freedom of election is the right to choose who will govern us. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the right to choose the lives we lead, who we live them with, and how we live them. Freedom of religion, the right to choose how, where, and even whether we worship. Choice makes our rights real. It's a great quote up on your screen by Jean-Paul Sartre. If you've ever read Sartre, you know he's not the sunshiniest fellow, but he gets it right. I am my choices. You and I and everyone, we are the sum total of the choices we make. Good ones, bad ones, silly ones, significant ones. They make us who we are. They make us and tell us who we want to be and who we don't want to be. So if you ask me my favorite right, it's the right to make choices, because without choice, our rights don't matter very much. Next slide, please. So when you hear me say the right to make choices, I want you to think about a word, self-determination. It's a buzzword. I know you all know it. It's part of every DD organization, part of every older adult organization, part of your bedrock beliefs, self-determination. Self-determination is control over one's life. People who are self-determined do things instead of having things done to them. They are the causal agents in their lives. They make things happen. They make choices instead of having choices made for them. So when you hear me say self-determination, think the right to make choices, because people who are self-determined make more choices. Next slide, please. And what we know from literally 3 decades of studies, and I mean study after study after study, just some quoted on your screen now, is that older adults and people with disabilities who make more choices, who have more self-determination, have better lives. We have study after study after study that show that people who are more self-determined are healthier, more independent, more well-adjusted, and safer. Next slide, please. But that makes us have to ask another question. The rights, the self-determination that we hold so dear, that we would fight to keep, are they worth anything if you kind of have them hypothetically, but you're not allowed to use them? I mean, if I say to you, sure, you have freedom of speech, but you're only going to talk when I tell you to. You're only going to say what I tell you to. Oh, of course you have the right to vote, but you're only going to vote for who I tell you to, and that's only if I let you vote. Are those rights? Without choice, our rights mean nothing. Next slide, please. And that is exactly what we have been doing to older adults and people with disabilities for about 1,500 years. See, here's a confession for you. Hopefully you haven't figured this out. Hopefully you have figured this out already, by the way. I'm a giant legal geek. I am. I'm a legal history buff. So I can tell you that about 1,500 years ago in the Roman Empire was the first time laws were harmonized and codified all across an empire. That's the Western legal tradition. The Eastern legal tradition with the Code of Hammurabi is about 10,000 years old. But the Western legal tradition in ancient Rome, an emperor named Justinian got the governors from all the provinces together and wanted to harmonize their laws. So there's all the same across the empire. It was put in a book, and the book was called the Justinian Code. I am such a geek, I named one of my sons Justin, and I do have a copy of the Justinian Code. And it's the first time we had unified laws. It's the first time we had unified rights. You know what one of those laws said? It said if you are feeble-minded, and that was their word for older adults and people with disabilities. If you were feeble-minded, you had to have a curator put over you to make decisions for you. And just like that, 1,500 years ago, we created a culture or an expectation or a supposition that older adults and people with disabilities who have any limitations must not be able to do anything. and they must not be allowed to do anything. And that's where it began. And that has followed us for 1,500 years. In Great Britain, where we got most of our laws, in the Middle Ages, they updated Justinian. They said, if you are an idiot or a lunatic, and that was their words for older adults and people with disabilities, idiots and lunatics, you had to have a committee over you to make your decisions for you. Next slide, please. That followed us to America. We just call it guardianship or conservatorship. And I'm going to just use the shorthand term guardianship. Most states refer to substitute decision-making over an adult as guardianship. Several, including some of the ones that are on your community of practice, use conservatorship when talking about a person with disabilities, and guardianship over an older adult or someone else. I'm just going to lump it together. When a court appoints someone to make decisions for someone else, I'm going to call that guardianship and call that person a guardian. And there's nothing wrong with guardianship when it's done right. Because the whole point of a guardianship is this: if a judge decides that I am not able to make some or all decisions in my life, what I should have is someone put over me to make just those decisions that I can't make. And if the world worked that way, I'd be the biggest fan. That's what my godson has. My sister has authority to make monetary decisions for James because that's the one type of decision he really just can't figure out. But that's what she has, and that helps him. So if guardianship worked that way, I'd be the biggest fan. But what we know, unfortunately, is that over 90% of guardianships, 95% in one study, take away all rights. We call those plenary or full guardianship. And while there is nothing wrong with that type of guardianship when it's needed, when it's not needed, it is very dangerous. And yet judges do it all the time and seem to prefer to do it. As one scholar said, courts will prefer to use it as long as they can. One judge told me it's just easier to check all the boxes than figure out which one to check. Next slide, please. And that's dangerous. Because when someone has full authority to make decisions over me, if I'm able to make some of those decisions, what we have is that third party, that guardian, who has full control over my life, substantial and often complete authority over the life of a person, according to the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, including the power to make the most basic and intimate health, personal, and financial decisions, as the AARP said. That's nothing wrong with that when it's needed. But when I'm able to do those things, to take that away from me, that's dangerous. Next slide, please. Because just like we know that self-determination is the key to a quality of life for older adults and people with disabilities, we know the opposite is true. We know since the 1970s, the first studies, that when people lose self-determination, they can feel helpless, hopeless, self-critical, in the words of that one study. And in fact, the rest of that sentence is, they will not, quote unquote, behave because they see no point in behaving. And that's not rocket science, is it? If I tell you time and time and time again, you can't do something, are you feeling particularly motivated to try? Of course not. That's why we know from other studies that people who lose self-determination have lower self-esteem. They feel like they failed. They did something wrong. They're more passive. They're less likely to try new things because they feel like they'll fail at those too. We even have a term for that called learned helplessness. Next slide, please. And this is not new. We've known about these dangers for decades. As I tell many of my audiences, concerns about guardianship did not start with Free Britney. We've known about these troubles for decades. And in fact, on your screen is a quote from the House Select Committee on Aging in 1998, almost 30 years ago. Congress did the first investigation on guardianship. They looked at guardians, they looked into guardianships, they read guardianship laws, they talked to guardianship, they talked to people under guardianship. And what you're looking at on your screen is one of the first paragraphs in that report. Take a look at the bold words particularly. The typical ward, person under guardianship, has fewer rights than the typical convicted felon. When we put a guardian over someone, particularly when that guardianship is what I call overbroad or undue, if it takes away rights a person does not need to lose, or takes away any rights when a person is able to exercise them, that is an overbroad and undue guardianship. When we have that, we've got a third party, often a stranger, with the power to choose how people live, where they live, what kind of medical treatment they get, even if they get medical treatment, and sometimes when they die. It is, as the congressman said, Congressman Pepper, who was the chair of that committee, the most punitive civil penalty that can be put against an American citizen, except for the death penalty. Next slide, please. So where do we go from here? Made your promise, going to keep it. Absolutely, there are times when guardianship is appropriate. If a person is so disabled or impaired they cannot take part in decisions, of course, guardianship is a good thing. If a person does not want to take part in the decision-making process and puts him or herself at risk or other people at risk, of course, guardianship can be a good solution to that. In an emergency, if there's no one to help, a temporary guardianship can be a perfect solution. So I'm not here to say there should never be guardianships. Next slide, please. But what I am here to say is there should never, never be guardianships just because you're X years old, or you have Y diagnosis, or Z IQ, or because you need help. Or the two at the bottom that really turned my stomach, because that's the way it's always been, but because it's for your own good. I hear for your own good across the country. I hear it from judges. We're just doing this for their own good. I hear it from people seeking guardianship. They need this for their own good. I hear it from service providers. They have to have this for their own good. And it always gets me riled up because for your own good, we're taking away rights. We're taking away self-determination in the face of decades of research that show it may well not be good. And we're saying it's for your own good. And then there's the term. Think about your own life. Have you ever heard the phrase, it's for your own good, and had something good happen? Of course not. That's a terrifying phrase. But I hear it all the time. We have to do this. I need a guardian for my mother, my brother, my sister, my father, my loved one, whoever, for their own good. Because if they don't have one, something bad might happen. They might meet someone they shouldn't meet, might do something they shouldn't do, they might sign something they shouldn't sign. They might make a bad decision. Next slide, please. And here's what I've learned. People who do that, 98% of the time have the best of intentions. They mean well. Yes, there are bad actors out there. There's horrible cases of guardianship abuse. But most of the time, people mean well. But there's a quote up on your screen that's pushing 100 years old. And it's just as true as when the Supreme Court said it. When we mean the most well, that's when we have to be the most careful. We have to be careful because when we do what we think is the right thing without examining the consequences, without examining the bad things that can happen as a result, that's when very bad things can happen. The greatest dangers to liberty lurk in the insidious encroachment by men of zeal who are well-meaning but without understanding. It's a 100-year-old quote. The Supreme Court did not know, apparently, that women could have zeal, but they were 9 old white guys. Hopefully we're doing better now. And we can just say people of zeal, people who mean well, people who don't understand the consequences. And yet I hear it all the time, meaning well, for their own good. They might sign something they shouldn't sign, do something they shouldn't do, meet someone they shouldn't meet. So I ask people to look in the mirror. I ask them about decisions that they make. I ask them, and ask yourself this question. Have you ever closed on a mortgage? I have multiple times. And think about your mortgage closing ceremony. You're sitting at a table, several people around the table. There's an agent, there's a lawyer, there's a seller, there's a paralegal probably, there's a buyer's agent. What there definitely is a stack of papers up to the ceiling, right? Huge stack of papers, which get handed to you one at a time, or they're sent to you as a PDF, one at a time. And the only thing that's in common with all of them, they've all got a little spot that says sign here. You give them a piece of paper, you said sign here. Well, I ask people, were you like me and not read it first? Did you not read those papers first? Did you put hundreds of thousands of dollars of your money and 30 years of your life in the hands of a stranger, a bank, without knowing what the fine print, without knowing whether that bank was under indictment, without examining the terms? That's a terrible decision. Don't you need a guardian for your own good? Or I ask people, have they ever had surgery? Have they ever consented to a medical procedure like surgery? I have. I had my knee done. And what I can remember about that day is my heart rate was jacked. I just wanted Valium. I got wheeled into the surgery center and a bunch of strangers were getting up in my face, talking jargon at me. I'm your doctor, I'm your nurse, I'm your anesthesiologist, I'm this, I'm that. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. But what they all had was paper in their hands, shoving it in my face, saying, sign here. And I ask, were you like me and you didn't read it first? Did you put your life in the hands of strangers? You didn't read what you were signing? That's a terrible decision. Don't you need a guardian for your own good? Here we are finally, I hope, coming out of 3 years of pandemic, 3 years of being in the house, 3 years of social isolation. And I ask people all the time, did you during that pandemic play my favorite pandemic game, my favorite way to cope with the pandemic? And that's this. Did you have a bunch of drinks and see what showed up from Amazon the next day? God bless Amazon Prime. I could know what kind of day I had today by what shows up at my door tomorrow. Did I get another useless piece of exercise equipment because I was stress eating? Did I get another useless piece of kitchen equipment because I wanted to stress eat? That's the kind of days we have. That's a horrible decision. That is a terrible, terrible decision because we spent money we shouldn't have spent. We wasted money. Don't we all need guardians for our own good? Ask yourself, have you ever had a bad relationship and had it help you learn what a good one is? Have you ever woken up the next morning and said, oh my God, I am never doing that again? But I'm kind of glad I did, because now I have a story to tell. Now I have a teachable moment. Now I have a learning experience. Now I have a life lesson that I can impart. Have you ever been a rescue buddy? You needed a rescue buddy. Have you ever woken up that next day saying that was some bad decisions I made and I learned my lesson? Well, think about that. Think about what that means. Think about what we all did. Doesn't that mean you all need guardians for your own good? It doesn't. What it means is that you made mistakes and you learned from them. You are better, stronger, smarter people because of your mistakes. You made mistakes that taught you that you are now more effective and you can impart those lessons to people. So what I say to you is mistakes don't mean you need guardians. You don't need a guardian for your own good. Sometimes mistakes are for your own good. Remember that John Paul Sartre quote? I lied to you. You are not your choices. You are your bad choices. Your bad choices taught you who you want to be, who you don't want to be, what you do and don't want to do. So when we say someone needs a guardian for their own good, aren't we saying you shouldn't grow? Aren't we saying you shouldn't move forward? I have one more example for you, one more cute little game I'd love you to play. I can't see your faces, but I want you to think, those of you who can remember what things were like in 1995. I saw Katie's face earlier, and she probably doesn't remember what things were like in 1995 for people with disabilities and older adults, and God bless you for it, although the rest of us hate you. Because in 1995, if you can remember what the service system was like for people with disabilities, it was only 5 years after the ADA was passed. It was 4 years before the Supreme Court made a decision in another case called Olmstead that said people with disabilities have the right to live in the community. That means in 1995, it was perfectly okay to say to a person with disabilities or an older adult to say, you will live in an institution, you will live in congregate care, you will live in a nursing home, and you have no choice. It doesn't matter what you can do, what you think you could do, or anything else. You have no choice. That was 1995. In 1995, a sheltered workshop where people make sub-minimum wage was considered an approved outcome, a good thing. Schools and vocational rehabilitation would brag about people they placed in sheltered workshops. In 1995, we didn't have technology like we have now. We didn't have supports and services. We didn't have this broader Medicaid waiver program. Fast forward to today. It's not even 30 years. It's less than one generation. It's 28 years since 1995. Now, the right to live in the community, people with disabilities and integrated housing, if that's what they want and that's what they can do, is protected by the Supreme Court. Integrated employment in the community, making regular wages and paying regular taxes is now an expectation, and someday I hope to say it's a right. We have support services, we have technology. Think about your phones. Think about the phones that I hope you're not looking at now because you're bored. Think about what your phones can do. Think about how much more you can do on your phone than talk. And in fact, we spend way more time on our phones doing other things than talking. With my phone, I can do a telemedicine appointment. And I can conference in someone else if I want to make sure the doctor understands me and I understand the doctor. With my phone, I can check and balance my budget. I can do my bank, and I can invite someone, if I want, to help manage it with me, to help make sure I'm not overspending, to help me make sure I've got my money in check. With my phone, I can manage my medication, my prescription. I can set reminders to take things. I have a person I worked with. She had traumatic brain injury and diabetes. And sometimes she did not keep track of her blood sugar. And she was exactly the type of person who would be in an institution in 1995. Today, she has a free app, connects her monitor to her phone. When her blood sugar gets too low, it sends her a text, eat something. If it gets lower still, it texts her mother, sister, doctor so they can intervene. And they have. And just like that, Tanya lives independently. She works independently instead of being in an institution, instead of not having a life with a free app. So what I'm telling you is, sitting here in 2023, on the cusp of 2024, don't we have more ways to make more people more independent than we ever have before? Katie, next slide, please. And why have the number of people under guardianship tripled since 1995? In just those 28 years, the estimated number of adults in guardianship has gone from an estimated 500,000 estimated 1.5 million. It's tripled. That's a generation. And before you say it's because we're getting older, believe me, I know we're getting older. According to the National Council on Disability, the fastest growing segment going into guardianship are young adults, 18 to 24-year-olds with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In fact, according to NCD, if you are an 18 to 24-year-old with IDD, you are more likely to be in guardianship than a 75-year-old. That is a generation we have lost. Why? Because we mean well. And what do we know? Statistically speaking, they have lost all their rights, probably for the rest of their lives. Next slide, please. The science is scary. We know that people who are in overbroad or undue guardianship can experience negative impacts on their lives, significant negative impacts on their lives. They feel less well, they perform less well. In some cases, they live less long. Next slide, please. However, we also know on the other side of that, older adults with more self-determination are better able to look after their care needs, better able to be involved in their health care. People with disabilities with more self-determination have a better quality of life, more independence, more community integration, more employment. Next slide, please. And here's the big one, because the number one reason I hear for guardianship is safety. I never question someone who wants to keep someone safe. I am a parent. I know that the number one obligation of every parent is to protect their own. The number one obligation of a child is to look after their parent when their parent gets older. So I understand the need for safety, the urge for safety. So I never say you're wrong when you want someone to be safe. What I do talk about is science. And there is a series of studies, one of them was on your screen, by a doctor named Ishita Kempka out of New York. And she did a series of studies on the interplay between self-determination and safety. What she did was she worked with women with intellectual and developmental disabilities. If you don't know this, you should. I'm sure you do. Women with IDD are exponentially more likely to be abused and neglected than any other segment of the population. Physically, emotionally, sexually, it is terrible. So Dr. Kempka took it head on. She worked with a cohort of women with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I'm not a scientist, so I call it an apples to apples study. All of the women in the study had similar abilities and limitations. What she did was she divided them up into two groups, classic experiment, a control group, and she told the control group, go live your life, and an experimental group. And to the experimental group, she gave access to a recognized curriculum designed to enhance self-determination, to teach people about choices, to help them make more choices, to be more aware of their choices. When the curriculum was done, she brought the groups back together, gave them a recognized test that is designed to determine whether people are able to recognize and avoid abusive situations. You know what she found? Apples to apples. The ones with more self-determination were better able to recognize potentially abusive situations and avoid them. They were safer. It's not rocket science. If you know something is yours, if it's your body, your choice, your life, aren't you more likely to fight like hell if someone tries to take it away? So I tell people, if we want to protect older adults, if we want to protect people with disabilities, don't take away rights. At least don't take away rights that don't need to be taken away. Build abilities, enhance self-determination, because that's directly correlated with safety. Next slide, please. And I call this one the cherry on top of the sundae. The National Core Indicator Study, which many of you have probably been directly involved in. I know a lot of DV councils worked on it. For those of you who don't know, the National Core Indicator Study was a national study done in almost every state. It looked at the quality of life of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It looked at things that impact people with intellectual and developmental disabilities' lives. So it looked at the impact of certain variables on quality of life. And again, this is an apples to apples study. They even used the old nomenclature, mild, moderate, and severe. So they compared people with mild disabilities to people with mild disabilities, moderate to moderate, severe, severe. And what they looked at was the impact of certain things on quality of life. And one of the things they looked at was whether or not a person had a guardian. And across the country, in every state that did this, what they found, apples to apples, was that people who do not have a guardian are more likely to work, live independently, have friends other than staff or family, go on dates and socialize, and practice the religion of their choice. They were so surprised they did it again a couple years later. Next slide, please. They found the same thing. People with IDD, apples to apples, who don't have a guardian, more likely to live where they want to live, be involved in choices, be involved in their community, be respected, have jobs, date, and marry. And I ask people all the time, aren't these the exact things we want for our loved ones? Isn't this the kind of life we want for people? Well, if we know that the one thing that could be standing in between having this and not having this, and by the way, the latest NCI data, I am told, says exactly the same thing. If we know that having a guardian may well be the thing in between having this and not having this, doesn't that mean not that there should never be guardianships? We should think about it. That 1,500 years since Justinian of assuming that limitations equals inability is too long, that there is a better way. Next slide, please. So where do we go? What I hope I showed you is that self-determination, choice-making, is the key to a better quality of life for people with disabilities and older adults, and that the converse of that is true. Losing self-determination, whether through a guardianship, conservatorship, or anything else, can harm people. But if we agree on that, there's one more thing we have to agree on before we can move on. That self-determination is not you're on your own. It's not go live your life. It's not vaya con Dios. It is not that, because older adults and people with disabilities need help. I mean, everyone needs help. I'm getting help right now from Katie because my laptop went down. We all need help. I would have needed help probably logging on if I had a working laptop. Everyone needs help every day. So what I posit to you before we move on is that the way forward goes like this. We need to find ways to maximize the self-determination and choices of older adults and people with disabilities, because we know that self-determination equals better quality of life. But at the same time, we have to make sure that everyone has access to the help they need to exercise their self-determination effectively and safely. If we can agree on that, let's move on. Next slide, because I've got the way forward for you, and that's this: supported decision-making. I know I'm 25 slides in, and I'm finally getting to the point. But self-supported decision-making is the way forward. It is a way to maximize self-determination while also ensuring support. If you want to know what supported decision-making is, good news. There's a definition on your screen. Feel free to screenshot it. I have told Katie she can send the slide deck out. You can see the definition. There's lots of long words. I'm the writer of it. You'll find it in textbooks. A recognized alternative to guardianships through which people with disabilities use friends, members, and professionals to help them understand the situations and choices they face so they may make their own decisions without the need for a guardian. You can now, people, you heard the author of that definition on a webinar. But here's what I'd rather you do. Forget it, because that definition sucks. That definition is pseudo-intellectual crap. Next slide, please. If you want to know what supported decision-making is, ask yourself a question. How do you make decisions? What do you do when you don't know what to do? What do you do when the doctor speaks jargon at you? What do you do when the auto mechanic, I don't know a damn thing about cars, says a whole bunch of fancy sounding technical stuff? What do you do when you don't know, when you've got a personal issue that you're so close to that you know you can't do it on your own? What do you do when you don't know what to do? You get help. You talk to people. You call a best friend. I call them go-to people. I have a go-to person. I have a buddy who knows about cars. I call him when I go to the mechanic. Does this sound like a good idea? Am I getting ripped off? When the doctor talks jargon, I go, can you explain that to me in plain language? When I have a relationship issue, I call my best friend. When you do that, you're using supported decision-making. Next slide, please, because that's all supported decision-making is. Supported decision-making is getting help when you need it, to understand the decisions you have to make and make them. That's it. We use supported decision-making every day. I'll guarantee today you asked someone for advice about something. You did some research on something. You looked up something. You asked someone to explain something. When you do that, you're using supported decision-making. Think about all the cliches we have in our lives about supported decision-making. You didn't know they were about supported decision-making, but they are. Think about them. Don't make a snap judgment. Don't go off half-cocked. Get a second opinion. Make an informed choice. My dad always said, if you measure twice, you only have to cut once. They all mean the same thing. Get help. Before you make a decision, get help. Ask for help. Do some research. Double check. Get a second opinion. That's what supported decision-making is. And people without disabilities are called wise when they do that. We are sometimes evaluated on our jobs by how well we work with others. If you don't have a disability and you say, I don't know, but I'll go find out, people will say that is someone going to do a smart thing. They're getting a second opinion. They're looking it up. But when people with disabilities, when older adults say, I don't get it, can you explain it? For 1,500 years, we've said that's evidence they don't know what they're talking about. They can't do things. That's what we have to change. Next slide, please. So if we assume that that's true, if we assume that we all use supported decision-making every day, where do we go? Well, consider this. Every state law I've ever seen, I've been in almost every state, says the same thing. You can't go into a guardianship unless you're incapacitated or incapable or incompetent or unable to make decisions, or if guardianship is necessary, or if there are no less restrictive alternatives available. All those keywords: unable, incapacitated, can't manage, they all mean the same thing. Next slide, please. That's this. How do you know? I mean, sometimes we know, I'll admit, a person in a coma we know is incapable. But otherwise, 98% of the time, how do you know whether a person is incapable or just needs help? Think about your life. There are things that you are capable of doing right now without help. They're probably different from the things that I'm capable of doing without help. There are things you need help to do. I certainly have things I need help to do. And there are things there is no way I can do unless I get help. No way I could do my taxes. No way I can do complex math unless I get help. I'm terrible at it. You want an example of capacity? And that's this. Unless you're a medical professional, unless you have a medical license, you can't take care of your health because you can't diagnose yourself. You can't prescribe medication to yourself. We have to get help. We have to go to the doctor and ask the doctor what's wrong with us and ask the doctor to help us. So help is what makes us capable. Our abilities, our capabilities are often dependent upon the help we have. So next slide, please. That means before guardianship, we have to ask incredibly important questions. This is the first one. If you can only manage or only be capable or only manage your life or do what you need to do if you have help, are you incapacitated? The answer to that better be no, because otherwise we're all incapacitated, because none of us can manage everything in our lives without help. So incapacitated or incapable or unable, they can't mean in a vacuum. So we have to ask, is there help available? Or could we develop help that could help that person do those things? Next slide, please, because the most important questions we can ask are these. If you can be capable or manage your life or be able, if you get help, is guardianship necessary? Is there a less restrictive alternative available? Of course, there's alternatives if you can get help. And of course, guardianship is not necessary if you can do things with help. Next slide, please, which is why the most important question we can ask before guardianship is this. What else have you tried? Because 98% of the time, that's the most important question. We have to ask, if you think I am incapable, what has been done to help me be capable? What has been done to help me overcome my limitations, to address my limitations? What else have you tried? And if the answer is nothing, this should not be a guardianship. That's my dream for judges. I tell this to judges in multiple states. You have an obligation, judge, to ask this question. You are the guardian of the law, so to speak. And if someone says, we have tried nothing, isn't it your obligation to say, come back when you have? Because otherwise, how can I know
Never mind.
is incapable or unable? Next slide, please. That's not just my position. That is actually the position of the National Guardianship Association. The National Guardianship Association, the NGA, is made up of guardians, by guardians, for guardians. They are the national lobbying organization and training organization for guardians. Their website is guardianship.org. They train guardians, certify guardians, have a code of ethics for guardians. There is no one more invested in guardianship than the NGA. And this is their position. Before guardianship, try something else. Try supported decision-making. It might work. It might empower the person. Try it. It might not work. If it doesn't work, guardianship may well be appropriate. But what's the rush? Given the importance of the rights at stake, why would we jump to guardianship without trying something else first? Next slide, please. Because supported decision-making can do for people with disabilities and older adults what it does for you. Think about the way you use supported decision-making. You no doubt you use it to see the forest for the trees, to focus your attention on exactly what you need to do, to weigh your options, to figure out your options, to make a pros and cons list, to make sure you're not just making a snap judgment, to talk it out and make sure you understand fully before you make that decision. All of those things are supported decision-making, and the people with disabilities and older adults can do the exact same thing. Next slide, please. And here's the good news. If you're thinking to yourself, get to the point, hippie, how do I do it? Where's the book? Where's the app? What's the 5 steps? You already know the answer to that. There aren't any. I've written 2 books on this subject, and I can tell you there ain't no one size. If someone tells you I have the ultimate way to do supported decision-making, the ultimate form, the ultimate book, the ultimate app, run away. Because you already know that you use supported decision-making differently than I do and differently than anyone else. We all have different ways of getting support. Some of us like informal support, a shoulder to lean on, an ear to listen to talk it out. Just talk it out with a buddy. Other people like me have go-to people. I have people in my life I go to. And one of my kids is having trouble in school. I go to my sister, who is a superintendent, for advice or assistance. My other sister is a gerontologist. Now that my mom is getting older, we lean on her a lot for information and advice. That's a go-to person. And they can be written into plans like powers of attorney, advanced directives, and support plans. Other people like more formal methodologies like micro boards or circles of support, like a personal board of directors. We meet live or virtually every now and then. We talk it out. We have debates and discussion. The whole point being for you to help me crystallize and understand my issues so I can make a decision. Well, all of these are supported decision making. All of them. Because all of them involve me going to you for help. You giving me information and advice so I can make the best possible decision. Next slide, please. In fact, I always say there's only 3 commandments of supported decision making. All of us can leave the biggest advocates for SDM that there is if we look at these and commit to these. They're all easy. Number 1, we all commit to this. Everyone has the right to make choices to the maximum of their ability. And that's easy. That's the Declaration of Independence. We hold those truths to be self-evident. That's in the DD Act. That's in the Old Age Employment Act. It's all there. We have the right to self-determination. Number 2, I can ask you for help in making a choice without you assuming that I can't make choices. And that's easy because we get help every day. No one assumes we can't make choices. And last, we all agree there are as many ways to give and get help as there are people. You ever have to go to plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, plan triple Q? We all have to try again. The first thing you try to support someone may not work. Try again. There's almost always another tool in the box, and something might work. Nothing might work. Nothing works, guardianship is probably appropriate, but what's the rush? Next slide, please. So there is no one way to do it, but here are some ideas, some broad-based ideas that might help you work with people to crystallize ideas around supported decision-making. First thing we have to do is figure out where a person wants help, where a person needs help. And that's where we should always start, with the person. We should never assume that people can't do things. So let's find out where a person is able to make decisions, where they want help, where they might need help. There's a great tool out of Missouri called the stoplight tool. There's a link on your screen. You go to the next slide, please. In the stoplight tool, what we have are a series of questions, real life questions. This is an example of it on your screen now, where we ask things like, can the person manage their benefits? Can the person direct their transportation? Do they take care of their health well? Is their medication well? And if we run that through with the person and people in the person's life, we can get some good ideas because there's 3 choices here. Yes, a person can do this without help. Good to go, green light. A person might need some help doing this, yellow light. And there's no way a person can do this, red light. So if we go through a tool and we see a bunch of yellow lights, that's where support's needed. We see a bunch of red lights and maybe guardianship's appropriate, but we should try something else first or limit the guardianship to just those areas. So the stoplight tool takes us through areas in life, daily life, employment, healthy living, money management, etc., and gives us an idea of where help is needed. Next slide, please. Once we know where help is needed, what kind of help would help this person? And here again, we start with the person. There's a 99.9% chance that person has used supported decision-making before. They have gotten advice. They have made decisions with help. They have thought through things. So the supported decision-making brainstorming guide, link on your screen, next slide, please, is designed to be kind of a back and forth interview to help the person figure that out. When have you used it before? How would you like to use it? And if something has worked before, maybe we should try it again. Maybe we should try again to rebuild that plan. And maybe if nothing has worked before, we can brainstorm another way to do things. Next slide, please. Once you figure out where you want support and what kind of support you want, who can help you? Who are the people in your life that can provide that support? And never forget programs and things like area agencies on aging, special education, vocational rehabilitation, Medicaid waivers, Centers for Independent Living, the Aging and Disability Resource Center in your state that serve people with disabilities and older adults. And they can help link you to supports and services. So who can provide help in the areas that you want, in the way that you want? Next slide, please. And once you have that, put it together. There's a great resource called the Setting the Wheels in Motion guide. Remember, these are not the only things in the world, they're just ones that I happen to like. There are others out there and they may not work for you. Try the ones that work best. Google is your friend. But what I like about the Setting the Wheels in Motion guide, it was written by a very good friend of mine who has 3 children with disabilities. She's an advocate. She's a special education advocate. She's on her way to be an attorney, but she's a mom first. She'll tell you that. And her kids all have what used to be called severe and profound disabilities. So the Setting the Wheels in Motion guide first starts with her story and how she supports her kids, how she helps her kids to make decisions. But the cool part of the guide is at the back. So there's a bunch of worksheets. Next slide, please. The worksheets that can help you work through these questions. Who can help, how they can help, where they can help, when we can get together, how we can meet, what are the things in the person's life? Because sometimes it helps to have that guide to help the discussion move forward. Next slide, please. And then my recommendation is put things in writing. Most states that have supported decision-making laws require some kind of writing. I'm not a huge fan of requiring a writing because I don't have a supported decision-making plan, even though I use it. But the ones that do, I always say it's a good idea, because it's a good idea to have something that says, this is where I want help, this is the help I want, and this is from who. Because people like stuff. I can take that stuff to a doctor, to a lawyer, to anyone and say, this is how we're going to move forward from here. And in the states that have plans, sometimes they have a form, sometimes they don't. There are forms available. One place you can go is supporteddecisionmaking.org. That's the National Resource Center for Supported Decision Making, where they have examples of plans. They have examples of other states' plans, or you can create your own plan. It is a good idea. It shouldn't be mandatory, but I believe it is a good idea to have your plan in writing. Next slide, please. Because something as simple as a young man I worked with named Marie Burgum. Marie just became one of the first, if not the first person in California to get out of guardianship, called conservatorship there, because she uses supported decision-making. Marie made up a roster. That was her supported decision-making plan. She had a roster, the names of the people and what they do. So we all, I was there. I helped. Mine was legal stuff. So I said, I will help Marie with this, signed. And that roster was her plan. And that became memorializing what she wanted to do. And that's how she runs this. We still have meetings with her supported decision-making group where she asks questions and she knows who to ask. And the rest of the group can weigh in as well. Next, and that's the kind of thing that can also go into a power of attorney or advance directive or something as simple as this. What's on your screen was made by a young woman in Virginia, a study I'm about to tell you about, where we asked people to create supported decision-making plans, ways that they wanted to and what they wanted to do. And she came in and said, this says who's going to help me, how they're going to help me, and when they're going to help me. And that's it. And I said, that is it. That's what supported decision-making is. It's figuring out where you want help, when you want help, who you're going to get it from, and where they're going to do it. Next slide, please. And here's what we know. I started this presentation talking about self-determination because self-determination is the key to a better life. And self-determination should be what we're after. Supported decision-making is the vehicle to get to self-determination. Because what we're seeing from studies coming in is that people who use supported decision-making to make their own decisions, instead of having decisions made for them, are showing improvements in quality of life. It's not rocket science. If you make more decisions for yourself instead of having someone else make it, you're going to be more self-determined. But here's the other thing. This works in a guardianship too. I always tell people it's not either or. It is not supported decision-making or guardianship. Some people need guardians. My godson needs my sister. But here's what most laws say. Almost every state law I've seen has said that the guardian's job is also to empower the person to make as many decisions as possible. So a person in a guardianship should be using supported decision-making whenever they can. The guardian should be working with that person. And who knows, maybe the person will figure it out. Maybe the person will be able to make decisions by themselves without the need for a guardian. Then the guardian can do one of my favorite things. Go to court and say, Your Honor, I did my job. Now you can fire me. And I've almost never seen judges, and in all the years I've practiced law, I almost never see judges happy. You know when I see judges happy? Marriages, citizenship ceremonies, adoptions, and rights restorations. Because in all of those, they're creating citizens. They're creating people who become full and equal parts of their community. And I have never seen judges happier than when I have seen them giving people their rights back. Next slide, please. And here's a very specific example of a study. I told you we worked with some young adults in Virginia. We didn't tell them what to do or how to do it. We told them about supported decision-making. We told them to make a plan and tell us their plan. They told us their plan. We said, go live your plan. And we followed them. We collected data. We did interviews. And here's what we found. For all of them said that they felt more independent, more confident, and felt like they were better at making decisions. Their supporters, their family members said, well, for almost all of them, they're making better decisions, objectively better decisions. And even though this was right in the middle of the pandemic, majority of them were doing more things in the community. They were more self-determined. It's not rocket science. We know that self-determination leads to better quality of life. That's section 1 of the DD Act, for those of you in DD councils. So ways that we can enhance that by support through decision-making are going to lead to better qualities of life. Next slide, please. Opportunities to do this are all around us. I am working with a group in Connecticut. I'm very lucky to be working with a group in Connecticut on supported decision-making. And we're talking about this way more than just guardianship, because supported decision-making can be part of the fabric of our lives. Think about all the opportunities there are to use supported decision-making. What, after all, is the student-led IEP in special education? It's an example of supported decision-making. Informed choice in vocational rehabilitation, the conversation, my last wishes and end-of-life planning. What is person-centered planning in Medicaid? What is informed consent in medical care? These are all examples of someone getting help to create their plans, to live their plans, to live their lives. So in Connecticut, we are looking at supported decision-making, not just as an alternative to guardianship. We have done webinars and brochures informing people how they can use supported decision-making in their lives, how they can incorporate it into their supports and services, how it can be part of their education, their work plans, their aging plans, their money management plans, how supported decision-making can be the thing that links their lives with greater self-determination, because that means a better quality of life. Next slide, please. Here's the thing, and one of the big questions I get is, if I do this, will I be safe? Can we guarantee that people who aren't in guardianship using supported decision-making will be safe? No, I can't. Of course I can't. Of course, when you ask people to support you and advise you, there's going to be some bad actors. There's always risks. But that goes for people with and without disabilities. I'll guarantee you out there right now, someone with or without disabilities is going to be led astray by someone they trust. I am going on vacation with 3 of my friends from college on Friday, and I will guarantee you they will lead me astray. But that's not our standard, is it? If we're asking everyone to only make the best, most logical decisions like Mr. Spock, we need to look in a mirror, because we all need guardians. And by the way, there has never been a single study saying that people are inherently safer in guardianship, and there are horrific stories of guardianship abuse. Doesn't mean guardianship's bad. It means that some people stink, and people are going to stink no matter what. So if I have a choice between things where I can get hurt, the one I am choosing every day and twice on Sunday is the one correlated with self-determination. Because like Dr. Kemka showed us, self-determination is correlated with increased safety. So that's why I say at least try. The National Guardianship Association says at least try. Next slide, please. Because if we do, great things can happen. Next slide, please. 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 All of these people were in guardianship. They had all been in for some decades in guardianship. All of them are living free now because they have supporters, because they have done the work, because they have gotten the support, because they convinced the judge they don't need it. I have been honored to work with people across this country. It just passed. The first week in August was the 10th anniversary of when of the case called the Justice for Jenny case. I had the great honor to work with a young woman named Jenny Hatch, who was the first person to win a trial that found that she could use supported decision-making instead of being put into guardianship. Next slide, please. And just in those 10 years, 24 states, 25 with North Carolina, I hope very soon, and DC. Now the majority of our jurisdictions have changed their laws to recognize supported decision-making formally as an alternative to guardianship, just because the things that we see are true. Self-supported decision-making is true. Self-determination is true. The results are real. There is the National Resource Center for Supported Decision-Making at supporteddecisionmaking.org, where you can learn more. And there are projects everywhere you can imagine. The thing I put on your screen, just some of the places I've been. Whatever state you're in, there is a project, and find it. And we can make things happen. We can make change happen if we start here. If we start by recognizing that everyone has the right to make choices, that everyone has the simple, basic right to make the choices in their lives. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. What we need to remember, and by the way, I just saw Phil Klissel come up on the screen. Hi, Phil. Phil was one of the first people to invite me to their state, Wisconsin, and Wisconsin now has a great supported decision-making law and great resources. But if we have to remember these things, we have to remember that change can happen, but change is hard. And change and the world pushes back. When you empower people to make choices, they might make bad ones. And when that happens, fingers wag and people say they needed a guardian. Guardianship isn't a suit of armor, I tell people. And what I also tell people is the things that we do isn't easy. If you're an advocate for change, if you're going to ask people to change the way they've done things, if you're going to ask to upset the natural order, there will be pushback. People will challenge you. They will say to you that you did wrong, that you should never have advocated for choice. You know better, but it ain't easy. But here's a quote from my favorite author on your screen. Whoever told us things would be easy? Whoever told us that this work, this area is easy? Did any of you get into this field advocating for people with disabilities, advocating for older adults because it's easy? You sure as hell didn't get into it for the money. You got into it because it's right. Because the purpose of life is not ease. It's to choose. The purpose of life is to make choices and act upon our choices. And when we do that, when we empower choice, when we encourage choice, when we fight for choice, you're not going to be measured by 1 or 2 backsteps. Of course not. You're not going to be measured by the times you fall down. You're measured by the times you get up, by your daring, your effort, and your resolve, by how hard you work, by how bold you are, and how many times you can get up, how resolute you are. Next slide, please. Because if we do this, if you become advocates and you fight for change, then great things happen. This is our goal. This has always been our goal. Older adults and people with disabilities having the same options as everyone else, having the same opportunities as everyone else, the same rights as everyone else, the same chances as everyone else. If we change the 1,500 years of culture, if we say 1,500 years is enough since Justinian, that we're not going to assume people can't do things anymore, that we are going to look for opportunities to support people, to empower people, then great things happen. Then we change the world. And I would be honored to change it with you. Next slide, please. That's my email address. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I know it's 5 o'clock and we're coming on our hour, but I am perfectly happy to stay longer if you have any questions, and I'd love to answer them.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. That was amazing information. Just a wealth of information, and really appreciate it. We are at the top of the hour, so I know some people may have to go. We can stay on for a few minutes. If people have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box right now. Or you can also unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question verbally. Any questions? Don't be shy. I know some people are leaving. And also this is being recorded, as you know, and people can get access to the recording when it's put on the NACDD website. And if you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint slides, I put my email into the chat, and you're welcome to email me and I'll send it your way. All right. Well,
There's a
yeah, go ahead.
question from Jesse from Disability Rights, New Jersey.
Oh yeah, Jesse'd like to ask about fear. So many parents are scared.
Hi, so it's actually easier for me if I just verbalize the
Please.
comment / question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Thank you for this presentation. It was very informative and also exciting, which is not always accomplished with some of these subjects. So very well done. Thank you very much. And congratulations on all the work that you've done for people with disabilities. It's much appreciated and very powerful. So thank you. So I'm asking this question about fear because parents especially are very hesitant to think about alternatives to guardianship, because they might say things like, well, what if I die soon? I want to make sure that my loved one is looked after. And even when advocates and attorneys give them opportunities like support in decision making and discuss alternatives to things like guardianship, they are still so terrified of what could happen, that they say, yeah, well, this sounds like a good idea. Right? But at the end of the day, if they have a guardianship, even though it's limiting them in some ways, at least I know they're looked after. And so there's no, you can't say someone is right or wrong, right? Because in lots of ways, family members know their loved ones best, but at the same time, they think they're choosing the lesser of two evils. And as an advocate, it is not appropriate for me to say something like, well, I think the alternative to guardianship, such as supportive decision making, will help so and so have a better life. All I can do is try to inform them and educate them about the other possibilities. But ultimately, the parent is still very likely to act on their own fear. So that's the question. What can be done to combat fear?
Not combat, but address. And I think, I know that you didn't mean it that way, because fear is a real thing. Parents have every right to be afraid. This is not a friendly world to people with disabilities. So I never question parents, never debate parents when they're afraid for their children. What I do is talk to them. I ask them what they want for their children. What is their hope for their children? And they always say some permutation of as happy as possible, as safe as possible, as independent as possible. And I always say, I can work with that. Let me tell you about self-determination. And we talk about ways to create opportunities, to create supports to make those things real. And at the same time, we take on what I call the myths, because the fear part, the safety part, when you think about it for 20 seconds, it kind of goes poof. I've asked parents, do you think that a piece of paper calling you a guardian will make your child take medication? That's number one reason they have to take their meds. Is having a guardian put meds in your body? I have to have a guardian so my kid won't have sex. Is guardianship a chastity belt? So we talk, we go head on into the myths, and we talk about opportunities. And I will tell you this, I've only had 1 or 2 parents ever walk out saying, I don't buy a thing you're saying and I still want guardianship. It's not about combating fear. It's about addressing fear. It's about acknowledging fear. It's about doing it in a progressive, intelligent way. Because a parent who is listening in the first place, who has that question in the first place, already has the right values. It's the question of how we implement them. Are some parents going to always get guardianship? Yep, they sure are. You're not going to close off all of it. But you may be able to open some minds, and you may be able to help some people who don't need guardians stay independent. And really, that's our best goal. And even the ones in guardianship, maybe you've got them thinking about self-determination so they can make as many choices as possible. It's not the best answer in the world, Jesse, because we'd love just to wave a wand and have people suddenly be on board with us. But laws aren't going to change that either. It's one of the things when I'm in states, I say, just having a supported decision-making law isn't even half the battle because laws don't change culture. They don't change expectations or morality. What they do is maybe they give us a context to talk about those things, but we still have to address them, and we still have to treat people who we know are going to have fundamental disagreements with us. And the way we do it is head on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, you can also email Jonathan for any other questions. His contact information was on that final slide. You can put it up one more time so you can see it. And I just want to thank you, Jonathan, for your time, for sharing your talents, your information. We really appreciate you and all the work you're doing and all that you're sharing with all of us. So thank you everyone for joining. Have a great evening. And we have another webinar coming up in a couple weeks that we'll have information about. Thanks again. Take care.
Been my honor.
Robin, do
Thank
you
you.
want to?
No, thank you so much, Katie, for closing out. And again, thank you to Jonathan. As Katie said, the link, the slides, everything will be available more likely tomorrow just because of how long Zoom takes to render. But, you know, Jonathan, you are not new to our network, so don't be surprised if you all of a sudden get an influx of calls, but we thank you. And we definitely look forward to continuing our partnership. And for everyone on the call, thank you. And we will see you all at the next call. Thank you, everyone.